Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation, CI/CD for Cloud-Native Applications on Kubernetes, brought to you by CloudBees. I would like to introduce you to our presenter, Juni Mukherjee. Juni is a thought citizen in the DevOps space and is a product marketer at CloudBees. She has helped small, medium, and large organizations implement the continuous paradigm and has led projects that improve time to market. She has worked across diverse domains like identity, security, media, advertisement, retail, camera, phone, banking, and insurance.
Cool. So what is the CI/CD thing? I'm assuming most of us are very comfortable with CI/CD. However, I would like to touch upon the concept of continuous everything, which is CI/CD, of course, as we know it, plus many, many more things. So we'll touch upon CI, CT, CD, and CD in this particular webinar, and that's why I've made the pillars for this webinar this way. But know that there are other pillars like continuous analytics, continuous governance that we are not going to particularly focus on today. But for today, we'll do CI, which is the protocol where teams integrate early and often. And the primary reason why we do that is if, folks who do t-shirt sizing a lot, the cost of a defect when found in dev or test is small. The cost of a defect when found in staging. And the cost increases exponentially when you find it in production. The cost is pretty large. So the reason we want to integrate early and often is because we want to minimize the cost of the project. When we go to CT, we see the automated tests integrating with pipelines. So note the primary difference between automated testing and continuous testing is that the tests are able to tell the pipeline whether to abort or whether to proceed. Continuous delivery, the third pillar. I hope you can see my pointer now. So automated releasable of products. So the products are releasable but are still behind some manual gates. And in CD, which is the other CD, we release products with no manual gates. So there is no human intervention in this case. With that, let's get started on a new offering from CloudBees, which is called Kubernetes CD in its full form, but we call it kubecd. And it's a streamlined CI/CD for applications on Kubernetes-based cloud environments. So let's take a quick look at what we are aiming to cover today so that we can pace ourselves accordingly. And we will look at the kubecd ecosystem with particular focus on Jenkins X. So kubecd is powered by Jenkins X, and it's one of the hottest open source projects at this time. We'll then look at Quickstarts. These are language packs that are pre-built to get you folks started ASAP. And it's not a marketing gimmick this time, so it does get you started quickly, sometimes within a minute or two, and we'll try to budget some time today to actually go through that. Then we look at GitOps. This is, as per me, the best way to do automated segregation of duties, separation of concerns without having to do a lot of manual handoffs and sign-offs. We'll look at this in detail. Then we look at a single pane of glass, which is like a pretty slick UI that shows teams, environments, and applications along with their versions in one consolidated view. And then we will discuss a little bit about a limited availability program that is open today. And we would encourage you to sign up for it, and we'll go through the benefits of it. Like if you do sign up, what happens. So let's get started, right? And this is a white paper that is a Jenkins X white paper. If you want to dive deep into Jenkins X, I do recommend that you look at the white paper. And some of the stuff that we are doing today, you don't particularly have to take a whole lot of notes or anything like that if you just download the white paper because it's outlined there. And a very special thanks to CloudBees for not just their commitment to open source software like Jenkins X, but also to do kubectl, like the investment in both of these have been tremendous, and this is a very fast-paced team. So I'm pretty sure changes are happening as we are speaking right now. And we would like you to follow CloudBees at CloudBees on Twitter so that you can, stay up to date with all the changes. So before we start, Billy, if you can help us get to a poll. I would just like to know how much the adoption of Kubernetes is inside of the audience that we have today. And you may have a different configuration of environments. Dev, test, staging, and production are what we are throwing out to you, but in general, you get the idea. So maybe you have it in all your environments, maybe you have it in some of your environments, or maybe you don't have it and you don't plan to have it. Or maybe you don't have it, but you are actively considering having it in the future.
I'll give a few more seconds for those last few responses, and I'll close the poll and show you all the results. There are your results.
Okay, I think that is very heartening to know. I'm especially thrilled that you do plan to have it in the future, and I think absolutely jazzed that some people actually have it in all their environments. And then of course we have the cut between the two. And no, we don't plan to is probably one of the best decisions you've taken, really. This is the future, so I'm glad that there aren't very many people in that bucket. Let's get back. So let's study the kubectl ecosystem in a little bit of detail. So at the heart, like we said, is Captain Kubernetes, the Jenkins. This is the Captain Kubernetes logo. So it's powered by Jenkins X, and this is a solution that can leverage managed Kubernetes solutions on cloud providers, like all the major cloud providers. So we will see that I will use Google Cloud today in a lot of our discussions, but that doesn't mean that the other cloud providers have not been taken care of, like the AWSs and the Azures and the Oracles. There is a limited availability program that just has opened up for Google Cloud Platform users. And so most of the stuff that I will show today is on Google Cloud, but make no mistake, the other cloud providers have made a whole lot of progress in leveraging, in providing managed solutions for Kubernetes. And if I have to remember my past, I didn't have a whole lot of fun setting up and managing it myself. So the point is that if you can, this is a great way to do Kubernetes without having to do the heavy lifting yourself. And then Jenkins X leverages it, and then kubectl does too. We will look at Helm charts. We will actually look at the Helm charts that are automatically created when you run the Quickstart. So focus on the Quickstart a bit. So if you had to write these YAMLs and take care of all the nitty-gritty details, it would have taken a whole lot of time to get you folks started. Similarly, the Skaffold YAML will be automatically written out by the Quickstart. So Skaffold YAML will identify, and we'll look at it like the build and deploy sections, like sort of a workflow. And then that same workflow will be leveraged in the pipeline once we get to that part. The applications can be, so you may have your own applications, and we will use the import, like JX import, and we'll look at JX in a minute. So hang in there. If you have your own applications, you can do JX import. If you just want to do a quick start like we will do today, the application will be written out for you automatically. And the Docker file will be written out for you too, which means the application will be containerized for you and then deployed onto the Kubernetes clusters on the cloud. So this part will be automated. Of course, you will make modifications, make customizations as you go. But the fact that you get a lot of it like for free out of the box is actually going to jumpstart you. And then there's Chart Museum. If you think about the Helm charts, so this is like the museum of charts. If you just it helps you remember. It's a repo where you will find all the charts, the versions, etc. And we'll also look at this, and we'll look at Monocular in the same context, which is like a web UI. And then you have the cloud providers. We're specifically going to be on Google Cloud for today, but it works with the other cloud providers too. And casing is where, so you will have, like, when we go to the JX commands, you will see something like JX sync. So it will help sync all the local files to, the Kubernetes cluster on the cloud. And then you have Jenkins, which is, which is exactly what it was. We look at the blue ocean, the pipeline visualization, and how the pipelines are running under the cover. So if we look at JX, it's like a very, very lightweight tool. The reason I like it is it's super lightweight, but it has a lot of power. And if you have downloaded the white paper, don't worry about how to get JX and all that. It's explained it very nicely in all the resources section. But then we will look at, so I have already created the cluster for us. So this is how I did it, and I'll go through the Google project ID in just a minute, which is pretty much the only parameter you need to create the cluster. And once you do that, I think we talked about importing. If you do have your own application, we will look at Quickstart, which means we will create an app like from scratch, and then try and take it through staging and production. This is the add-on, which is kubectl. Like there is an add-on called CloudBees at this time, which will take us to kubectl, and we'll also look at it. So I've already created the add-on in advance, so we'll just look at the UI. And environment is also something you would like to know. So we are just coming out of the DevOps World, Jenkins World in San Francisco, and there are a lot of the questions we can preempt in the session is, we've heard from hundreds of folks who already signed up for the limited availability, and the typical question could be like, what if I have a different configuration of environments? So you can absolutely have a different configuration of environments, and these out of the box quick starts are provided to you, so that maybe 80% of you do not need to change the defaults, and maybe 20% of you do. So to get you started, I mean, this kind of reduces your startup cost, like the jump starting cost, and then you can go ahead and customize not just environments, but the application Docker file, whatever else, like the Jenkins file, like you can add more stages. So JX is, so in the previous slide, you saw that I've installed it on my laptop, and I'm running it. If you want a more standardized platform, I would encourage you to go look at the Google Cloud Shell, where so this is the project ID that will be needed for the JX create cluster, which is the part that I've already done. And this is where you can go look at the, like if you try clicking on this, you will come here, but initially when the console loads, you won't be able to do JX automatically. But there are a bunch of other dependent tools that you need that are already pre-installed. And I would recommend that you try running stuff from the Google Cloud Console rather than your laptop. I mean, this is like, if you have a lot of people ramping up, people have different configurations on their laptops, but if all of them are on the Google Cloud Console, then at least you have a standardized way of knowing what's working or what's not working. And if you download the white paper, you'll have all these, like there are a couple of commands you need to do, the curl and the sudo, and then you'll be all set to run JX from here. Helm charts, we look at this. This is about the second of the 5 that we have chosen to discuss here. So if you look at any one of the repos that are automatically created by Quickstarts, you will see these files by default. So you see the Docker file, you see Jenkins file, the readmes, the Helm charts, and this was like, if this was the React Quickstart, so you kind of see the package.json as the source files, and you see the scaffold, etc. If you go look inside the charts, you can see them for the preview environment, for the staging environment, for production environment. But if you have to remember, like 3 things out of this, then this is essential to define, install, and upgrade the app, which is critical for the continuous paradigm. You can have versioning in source control, and this leads to traceability and obviously auditability, which is also a big deal. And eventually all of this, help in segregation of duties or continuous governance, which we are not covering in deep in this particular webinar, but know that this is the basis for doing automated segregation of duties without having to pass an artifact back and forth or throw it over the hedge. And this also then you can understand this part probably intuitively, that this makes rollbacks a lot easier than it used to be. Chart Museum, we've already discussed this. It's an open source Helm chart repo, and it generates the index YAML based on packages. And so, the manual generation part can be taken care of. And the API for uploading or deleting a chart version, listing the charts, etc., those are makes it very easy. We will take a quick look at this too, Monocular, the web UI for Helm charts. I ran into this recently when I was learning Jenkins X recently. So I quite liked, usually we are on the command line and that's all great. But sometimes to have a web interface where you can see all the apps that you were creating, or what kind of apps they are, like you can click inside and then actually see the versions, that helps quite a bit. And then Skaffold, this is, like we said, that handles the workflow and then leverages the workflow in an automated pipeline. And if we look at the file, but if you see, there's the build, there's the deploy, and the dev, and you can go look at all the Helm configuration. And this was the name of the application that we were trying to do. Like I had started from Quickstart in this case. K-sync, this is the final one that we will do today, the syncs file between our local file system and a Kubernetes cluster. And we really need to stop printing these t-shirts because it works on my machine is no longer an excuse that we can use. You are in a production-like environment at all times. With that, we have this GitHub repo is there for you to take a look if you're interested. So there's a bunch of Quickstarts that are already in here, and so we have tried a few. If you're looking at the repo, we will too in a few minutes. So you can see Spring Boots and the Reacts and Nodes and Goes, and I believe Python. But the idea is that we try to provide as many pre-built language packs so that this helps you understand how the various files, the various tools work with each other, and how they interact with each other without you having to stitch them together on your first day. So in my past, that has been one of the main challenges. So on day one itself, if I have to figure out everything like Helms and the scaffolds and Docker and Kubernetes and the clouds and the app and the tests and the dashboards and everything, it's quite expensive. But once I get started in a few weeks, once I kind of have warmed up, I can make all the customizations and the changes. So the GitHub integration for Node.js Quickstart. This is like what I initially opened on the console. This is basically the GitHub view of it. And you can see the charts and the Docker file, Jenkins file, the readmes, index package and servers. So view all the Go app pipelines in BlueOcean. So let's say you have a number of apps going for you. So you have the Node.js, which we just referred to. You have Go and React. So maybe you want to look at just the Go pipelines, and we will take a look at. You go and look at the pipelines. You have, like, so far, let's say 5 runs. You see that 1, 4, and 5 have passed, 2 and 3 have failed. You see when, how, what time, etc. What was the branch, commit IDs, the commit messages. You can get a bunch of information from the Jenkins BlueOcean. The default pipeline is that comes automatically from kubectl, has 3 stages in their Jenkins file. And this is a very simple pipeline. It's this stage is bypassed because we will look at the Jenkins file in a minute, and you will see that there is a conditional, and this follows the Jenkins files that are written out follow the declarative syntax, not the scripted syntax. At the same time, we do understand that some of us are using scripted syntax because may not be all our use cases are addressed by declarative, or maybe we never really got the time to do the transition. But we do recommend that you invest a little more on the declarative syntax, and we will look at the conditional by which this is being bypassed. The condition was that if this is a pull request, it goes through the straight line. If it's on the master, it does a bypass, and then you see that we were doing this on master at that time. So the bypass was there, the build and release stage was there, the promotion to environments was there. So all this is automated, and this does follow the GitOps model, which we are coming to. And if all this happens automatically, like you can click here, let's say you want to see the promotion, and then you can just go look at the various steps. So if this is a stage, just imagine the language, like the stage has many steps. You can go look at the steps and you see the promotion happening, and then you can just go from there. In case you had your failure, the visualization is pretty cool, where you can see that you're still bypassing the first stage because you're still on the master branch. Something bad happened, build and release, and then we had to bail out of the promotion. Don't want to, if this didn't work, we don't want to push a defective artifact. So we just bailed out of this step. And if you really wanted details, you could go click and then look at the problem areas. So the question is, if I were a customer of this, right? I mean, I would look at those 3 stages, and I'll deeply appreciate that, how fast it jumpstarts me. But has every use case been taken care of? I don't think so. And the onus lies on you to really make the pipeline, the stages, exactly how it fits your business protocols today. If you are connecting to a SaaS provider, and this is just like a rudimentary example. If you're connecting to a SaaS provider, maybe to run web and mobile functional tests. So maybe you're using some kind of a platform, and you know that there are network glitches frequently. You might want to introduce a retry. Once you do a retry, if there was a network glitch, at least it would have been solved in 3 times, or if not, just bail out. And sometimes it's, other network glitches cause the test to be hanging. So if you think your test should have definitely finished in 6-7 minutes, you might want to time out in 10 because you don't just want to wait forever. All these kinds of things is essentially, the way to make your pipelines resilient. And I know, Yoda is like all try not, do or do not, there is no try. I would still, in this particular case, request you to pay all your due respect to Yoda, but then also do the retry. And yes. So parallel is another favorite, where we're all trying to optimize time to market. We are trying to cut down our test cycle time. We are trying to cut down the other metric that's becoming very popular is feature lead time. But how? I mean, it always comes down to how exactly do we do it. And this is one of the many things that you can do. This is very effective. If you're running long-running security tests, performance tests, integration tests, or I know that we all often die this death by 1,000 test types. It's not a glorious death, believe me. But in case you have these very many kinds of things running and they are all running sequentially, we have a problem. So you'll be in discovery mode for a long time. So you'll have one failure, then you'll rerun everything, and then you'll have the next failure and the next read. It's kind of annoying. And if you run everything in parallel, at least you get early feedback. So, and even if one suite fails, you can kill that run, and that's fine. Even within the suite, you can run all the tests in parallel, which means that even within the security test, all the tests are running in parallel. Within the performance suite, the tests are running in parallel. And on top of it, the security suite and the performance suite are running in parallel. So that probably gives you like the power that you need in terms of optimizing time. time to market eventually. So with that, let's do the second poll of the day. We would like to know what kind of pipelines you write at this time. Like, are they more declarative? Are they more scripted? Or are they fully declarative, fully scripted? Or like maybe a hybrid mix of both? Or you kind of still are figuring out the difference, like don't quite know what's in there. That's how you started and that's how it is.
I'll give a few more seconds for those last few responses. And there are your results.
Okay, so I would say this is the third part is very predictable. All my pipelines with declarative syntax, all use scripted, are definitely parts that we heard and is recently concluded. DevOps was Jenkins was San Francisco, but we did get the maximum bucket to be a hybrid model that is a mix of both. And for those who don't know the syntax, I think the onus lies on us to give you some kind of an education, which unfortunately I'm not prepared to do right now because this is not the topic today. But either we can do like a future webinar on this, or what I can do is maybe have some material sent to you to kind of outline the difference. So let me see what we can do on that one. So let's get back. Okay, so we did the basis is on open source Jenkins X. We did look at some of the Quickstarts. So let's look at what's GitOps. So I do get reminded of factor 10 in the 12 factor principles that dev staging and prod should be identical. And we all know this, like for, I don't know, since the beginning of time. And yet the maximum number of times things fall apart is because dev staging and production are not identical. So this is something that we obviously would like to solve, because if we are plagued by this, like it works in my environment or works in yours or something like that, we are never going to really get very successful in the continuous paradigm. And I have modeled a very, very simple pipeline. I mean, this is like stupid simple. Like maybe I'm oversimplifying things here, but ultimately all my images have to fit like either a white paper or a slide. So I'm kind of challenged. Think of a component being built, tested, statically analyzed, and there is absolutely no harm in parallelizing as much as you want. Making a subsystem, so a component is the smallest distributable and testable unit, and let's say a subsystem is the smallest runnable unit, right? So out here you're standing something up and then running functional contracts, security performance tests, and hopefully if that everything goes well, you're trying blue green. Everyone's on blue. You do some checks and balances. Green shows up okay. You turn people over to the green, and then do some A/B testing. These are now business KPIs that are getting involved. Maybe you have the B configuration performing better than A, so business toggles go for B, and then B goes live in production. And all this happens, let's say in our case, in 3 environments: dev, staging, production. And if you have a different configuration, worry not. It's all going to be taken care of at some point in using the JX, the edit environments, etc. But this is the best way that I have found so far to have your dev, staging, and production in parity. And the three things that have been taken care of, the 3 reasons why this had happened. First, time. right? There's people who try for perfection so badly out here and then so badly out here before they go here that there is a big time lag from left to right. And the bigger the time lag, the more difference that is created between your left and your right. Because while you're, heads down doing something here, things here have changed. So don't take too much time in going from left to right. And that is something that kubectl actually fixes by automating this whole run for you. So that it's not like you don't have to do a whole lot of manual intervention, unless of course you want to configure it that way. The personnel who were raised in this world is different from the personnel who were raised in this world, and so on and so forth. And the more worlds we create, the more silos get created, and the more handoffs, and then the more sign-offs. So it's at the end of the day, if you're feeling like a circus monkey, then we have definitely done something wrong. And if you are like feeling like one team out here and then one pipeline, it's not like my pipeline versus your pipeline, then that's probably that's probably gives you the highest probability of doing the continuous everything pipeline in the best possible way. And of course, then lastly, there are tools. So you have these QA tools that cannot be used in production, and then you have these production tools that are not used in dev. And the more tools we have, the more kinds of tools we have, and the worse off we are. So essentially, all three problems are getting solved with something called GitOps, which is where environments are Git repos. So you have, you can have, let's call this preview, let's call this staging, let's call this production. Once you do something, merging to master goes through staging, through a pipeline, and you have the preview, staging, production. These are namespaces in Kubernetes, so they are all driven by the same kind of tools behind the scene. And we looked at some of that stuff when we were briefly looking at the ecosystem. So when you have this kind of a basis, then the chances that you have a nasty surprise in staging that was not discovered in preview, or a nasty surprise in production that was not discovered in preview and staging, the chances are very low. And then of course, if your environments are Git repos and your promotion happens through pipelines, then this is a fully traceable and auditable way, which can live up to like the most stringent of all audits. So if you're looking at that Git repo that the GitHub repo that I initially pointed, the github.com/Juni Mukherjee, you probably have arrived at the staging and the production by now. So the staging Git repo, pleasantly surprised when I was first learning it to find the Jenkins file, the environment and everything else that comes with thinking of this as let's say an auditable artifact. And then if you open the Jenkins file, you will find two stages by default: so validation of the environment and updation of the environment. And that's how we are promoting an artifact from, let's say, preview to staging. And this is like the 8th run of staging that we will actually look at the pipelines, and you can see all the times the staging pipeline was running to promote something to staging. But why did I say this is the best way to do segregation of duties in an automated fashion? Is because, let's say I was promoting this GoGenX, this is the Go app, to, let's say, 0014, this was the 9th run. So a pull request, every time you do this promotion, pull request is raised in staging and in production. They behave in a very, very similar and consistent fashion. And then you can look at the pull request, you can literally look at who raised it, for what app, for which version, and for which commit ID, and then when, like how many days, right, the screenshots taken is like 9 days ago, and then the pull request was successfully merged or not, and maybe closed. And then you can pretty much go look at everything that you need. This does not involve the manual handoff sign-off model, but all this is happening in GitHub. And then Of course, when that is done, this is successfully taken care of, then again, that same pipeline style where you validate the environment, update the environment, and your app would be in production. So with that knowledge, I mean, whatever we understood of GitOps, that your your environments are Git repos and your promotion happens through pipelines. With that much of information, I would like to understand if you have used GitOps in your organization, and it doesn't matter if you have used it through Jenkins X or kubectl. Maybe you haven't started, but that's fine. But have you generally used GitOps in your organization for your environments? Maybe you have fully on all, maybe you have not used GitOps at all, or maybe you kind of have used it partially, which means you honor some of the things that we have discussed, but probably not everything.
I'll give a few more seconds for the last few responses. And here are the results.
Okay. So I see a big action, big action item on our side to go do the full education, and then I think if you hang in there for the next 10 minutes, then we really need to do a little more GitOps today than I was originally planning to, and that's perfectly okay. So personally, I'm a bit disappointed with 66% of us not doing GitOps, because I was really hoping this can become a panacea for all the segregation of duties problems that we otherwise have. So we can definitely do that. And let's do the single pane of glass before, so that we can. I will try to. My screen's freezing for a quick second, and there we are. So I want us to look at this UI in great detail. So if you remember, initially I said that I've already installed the cluster and the add-on. So this is how I got to the UI. And we have several of our apps already running and ready for you to look at. This was primarily at the demo environment that we used at DevOps for Jenkins world. So you kind of see a lot of DW, JW stuff here. So I'll back up a little bit so that we can, our transition to do a little more GitOps today is actually more successful. So this is my Google Cloud Console. And if you remember, this is how we activated the Cloud Shell right here. And this is the project ID that I've used to do JX create cluster. That's already done for us today. And we saw a lot of this in my slides, like in the screenshots, but this is the Jenkins, the pipeline view, and then you have the staging. You have many different runs. If you click, we saw this many times. So we are now reasonably comfortable understanding that staging is a pipeline. Similarly, if I go back to pipelines, go look at production, go look at anything for that matter, and you can see that production is a pipeline with those two exact stages. Go back to pipelines, we can look at these apps. So the Go DW, JW, Go GenX, and Node. So remember we talked about Quickstarts and language packs pre-built for us. So we just said, okay, go and go make me a Go app and then a Node or like a Python or a React or a Spring Boot, and all this happened automatically. This is the Git repo that I said we will look at. So all the repositories are here. Whatever we were creating or whatever we have created in the past, they're all thrown in here. And you can literally go look at any one of these. I mean, right now probably doesn't matter whether it's Spring Boot or anything else, but whatever you do, you can go look at all the files that are automatically generated for you. Having said that, you're also going to do a bunch of, like, production is a Git repo, is what we discussed from the GitOps model. You can go look at everything that's happening, under environments, what's getting promoted, when it's getting promoted, what charts, etc. And then you can go back and look at staging in a very similar light. You can go look at the environments, etc. And then, of course, the Jenkins file. Those, remember, I said those were the two stages for now. And having done that, look at pull requests. So nothing's open right now. And then this is, let me back up a little bit. So this is the staging environment that we are looking at. This is the production environment. There are no open pull requests at this time. And with that information, with that context, this UI gives us the single pane of glass, as we called it. It's the staging. This is the preview, the staging. I don't have pull requests open at this time. So stage is the production, right? From here, you can just literally go to the source code, which we kind of already did. So maybe you're not too thrilled by this at this moment. You can go look at that. Initially, this was a pleasant surprise for me. So when I started, starting to create teams, I clicked on this team and I got to look at this app. And the reason I liked it because the teams, environments, and apps, I quite enjoy this view along with their versions. I mean, someone says, hey, what's up on staging? Like, and which one? Or what are you talking about? With the API or which API? Node API. Okay, so go. We don't even have to have these conversations ping each other on Slack or go to meetings or be managed by, like, sort of a release management process, which is manual, where we have to do status reports and all kinds of stuff, right? We can go look here, and it's absolutely clear that whatever app you are looking at, you can click on it. You can go look at the activity that happened. I mean, you can go look at commits if you want. It's really up to you how you want to use it. You can use this as a dashboard in your daily stand-ups. You can like leave this open so that half of your stand-up time will be automatically cut down, right? You don't have to ask these questions. And then what is, let's say, what does the React app, the first version ever, you can go say, okay, let's look at the app. Okay, so that's the status of the React app on staging. Okay, I mean, did you want to promote it or did you not want to promote it? You can have this very meaningful conversation. And then if you go to Node, okay, so this is the status of the Node app. Okay, I mean, that's fair. And then maybe look at the DWJW, like what's the status. It says from the CloudBees DZone. Okay, I was doing this maybe recently. And then that same app, so this is the fourth version that's on staging. It's the same app. Second version is on production. So you see the production is lagging by 2, which is perfectly okay, probably here. So the second version was hello from the DevOps World Jenkins World 2018 at San Francisco, which is okay. So while we do this, maybe start looking at if we want to do a JX create Quickstart, right? So these are all the different things that are pre-built for us, and we can, doesn't really matter, we can just take Go or Spring Boot. So let's say, another thing is when I have to give a project name, I have to first make sure that that name doesn't pre-exist, because if it does, it kind of throws things off a bit. So repo. So obviously I have all the DWJW stuff, yeah, from my conference. So let's say I do CloudBees DZone. I don't expect it to be there. Yeah, so we do not have any repos with this kind of a regex. So I go back and say go cb dz. Let's see what happens. So the CBDB thing is going on. Do you wish to use Juni Butler? Yeah, I mean, right now. So you will see if you're already on this github.com/Juni Butler, right now, if you refresh it, there is nothing called go-cbdz. This is going to get created right now as we talk. And do the timing. This is 10:46. Okay, which also reminds me that we don't have a whole lot of time. So would you like to initialize Git now? Yes. The commit message, we can just say, CloudBees DZone webinar. The Git repository is created, and which organization do you want to use? Do I want to use my personal? Do you want to use my company's? I just use my personal because this is all demo stuff. So enter the new repo name is go cbdz. That's perfectly fine as a repo name. And then I say create the repo. So go cbdz kind of comes through. And I'm not surprised. It's 10:47. We started at 10:46. We are still within a minute or two. Let's see what this does. So it says created this, Juni Butler go cbdz. So let's go see if it's lying or not. So cbdz, and there it is. So this was updated 29 seconds ago. So we go look at go cbdz. And you see the usual, like no surprises, all the stuff that we have previously discussed, Docker file, Jenkins file, the sample Go application, Skaffold, and the Helm Charts. The interest of time, I'll just let you look at it at your own pace. And what I want to show you is if I go to Jenkins right now, this Go cbdz has just appeared. So I click on it, the pipeline has automatically been triggered. So this is, you are seeing GitOps in motion. This is the best part is this got triggered, and we will try to follow it, see what's going on. And we are on master, so no surprises, we kind of bypassed the first step. In the interest of time, I will try to not do a whole lot of steps. Just try to construct the GitOps model in your mind so that you can consider using kubectl, or at least the right thing to do is have an automated way to do segregation of duties. So once this is happening, let's look at another view. So I want us to pull up the staging pipeline view of the world. So let this happen. And not quite sure why that view is not refreshing, but in the meantime, while that happens, I realized that I did promise that we look at Monocular. So Monocular is this web UI where you can see the DW, JW, Go, all the apps that we have created. You could kind of go inside, look at the charts and the versions. You are perfectly okay from command line too, but this is kind of a reassuring view. And I'll go back and see what's going on with our pipeline. So it's still running, so we have some time. And I will try to go look at staging to see if there are any changes right now. And in the meantime, what I eventually expect to happen is for that application to show up on staging, the CBDZ that we created, which of course it's not ready. And once it comes, it will have the first version of that Go CBDZ that will just appear here. In the meantime, if you are curious, you do see a spike on my Kubernetes, the Kubernetes solution on the Google Cloud Platform. It does show that some work is getting done in the background. And let's just see what happens. Also, while this runs, let me go finish the rest of my presentation. So we were here, and pretty much towards the end, where we were looking at that single pane of glass, and want to make sure you folks are aware that the limited availability launch is open. So if you go look at the sign up page, you will see that we will have your information and then, you know, send you emails going forward that what is it that we want us to do. So the participation is limited to Google Kubernetes engine at this time. I think we have discussed this. We will be considering all the feedback that we get at this point, and then eventually open up the limited availability to more configurations. Maybe that's one path we could take. Or before the GA, we certainly want to get all your feedback. So this is a perfect time to shape the future of kubecd, so that, you know, we can kind of build this together. So we're not going to build this in a vacuum where it doesn't satisfy the use cases that you were wanting it to satisfy. And then, of course, it's open to GitHubs right now. We understand, as from the conference, that there are other version controls that you're using and you're unable to participate, but we'll be kind of working through that period of time. If you have the time, I would like you to go to the landing page, the CloudBees kubecd. So it's a feature of CloudBees Core. If you go to the CloudBees Core page, you will see the announcement and then eventually take on the CloudBees kubecd. And it's a sign up, the same sign up page, and I would request you to follow CloudBees on Twitter, because the stuff's changing very fast, and then we will, you know, it's probably the only way we can keep pace. Is the teams are very enthusiastic, and they push changes a lot faster than a lot of other teams I've seen. So if you want to keep up to that pace, that have CloudBees on your Twitter feed. And then I'll let Max, my colleague, speak to the conference that is coming up in Nice in, like, I don't know, maybe less than 3 weeks or something now. Max, did you want to talk through it?
Sure, thanks, Juni. So for everyone, I'm putting a link in the chat window here for where you can sign up for DevOps World Jenkins World coming to Nice. It's a conference. We just actually had one in San Francisco all about Jenkins and DevOps as a whole. Juni will actually be there. She presented this in San Francisco. She'll be presenting again in Nice. If you want to ask her in person any of your questions you have, we'll be there. And then you can actually see there's a discount code right there on the slide. I'm going to also type this into the chat panel. That gets you 20% off your registration. So just to, before we segue over to questions and bring Billy back, I just want to let everyone know, thank you for joining us. Thanks for all your questions. We have had a lot. We don't have a ton of time, so we're not going to get to everything. So once we get started, I'm going to put my email address here in the chat window, and if we don't get to you, please feel free to email me, or even if you want to contact me preemptively, whatever it may be. But for now, I think that we have so many. Billy, you want to get some questions over to Juni to answer?
Yes. Our first question is, what is the difference between Jenkins X and CloudBees core Jenkins?
Sure. So let's look at the CloudBees core. I mean, it's a flexible and governed solution that helps you build your CI/CD pipelines. And Jenkins X is an open source project. It's not supported by CloudBees at this time. So CloudBees kubecd is a distribution around Jenkins X, which has all the goodness of Jenkins X, and it has automated pipelines, which means the entire ecosystem is automated for you. Whereas if you were doing any other solution, you would be having to build those files yourself. So while this is still running, and unfortunately, I don't know if this will finish, but let's go revise. I think we discussed this. So this automated repo includes the automated kubectl ecosystem that has come for you. This is not going to be there in a lot of other parallel solutions where you would be writing the Docker file, you would be writing the Jenkins file, you would be writing the Helm charts, you would be writing scaffolds. And there's no harm in writing everything yourself, just that on the first day, imagine if all of this were to come free for you. I mean, that's a really good jumpstart in my opinion. If I have not answered this, like please send us follow-up questions. We might actually be able to send you more, I don't know, landing pages or demonstrations, or maybe more like documentation.
Awesome. Our next question is, how would you do end-to-end tests for several microservices when it's merged to its master repo or during a pull request?
Can you come? I got the end-to-end part. Can you come to the other part, Billy, one more time?
Yes, I'll read it over. How would you do end-to-end test for several microservices when it's merged to its master repo or during a pull request?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is something close to my heart. So if let's just say, don't know if my new app has come, but it probably doesn't matter at this time. So if let's say these are all microservices, and these have, I mean, when you say end to end, this Jenkins file that we have today is end to end for this one line. I mean, I think that there is a bit of a nuance here. So the Jenkins file let's even look at this. So you have a Jenkins file where you have stages. So you have this stage, the first stage, this build, and then the build, and then the promote. So this whole line applies to this whole line, right? If you can see I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but to one line of microservices. Now that's one end-to-end test right there for you. However, the concerns that have been brought up are that what if all of them interact? Like we may not have independently deployable artifacts like the example shows here, which means the artifacts interact with each other in a integrated environment, which I think is what you're calling as end-to-end environment. Then those stages might be needed in your Jenkins file in a way that that these are already pre-deployed, and then you have them interact, you have the tests run them, and then report back results, which then takes you to like promotion criteria, like if and not just integration, right? Integration, performance, security, and then you will look at, so fortunately this is now done. If you have build and release, and if you have more gates here, that is where those gates will be. And then you will have more, if I may use the term, which I don't want to throw you off, it's called fan in and fan outs. So if you have more fan ins and then eventually fan outs, so fan ins are for all the microservices that are going into one integrated environment needs to be tested. And then fan outs are coming out where each of those tests have then passed, and then you are off to the next thing. But the main question you should ask yourself is, why don't you have independently deployable artifacts? Because in a microservices architecture, that's something that we kind of assume. The question is not how I have all my microservices then talk to each other, because then you're necessarily falling back to the service-oriented architecture, which is a great way to do things, like, don't get me wrong, but that also kind of in my mind doesn't add to a really classic microservices architecture. I'll stop there because I know that we're out of time, but I think this is probably a very good discussion that can also be had offline or in some other places.
Great. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Juni, for a great presentation today. I would also like to thank today's sponsor, CloudBees, for providing the audience with a great webinar presentation. And lastly, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you learned something new that will help you in your developer career. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.